Good morning Apex University, my name is Dan and I'll be your coach for today. And with the gameplay we got sent today, a message was sent to me saying please be very harsh on me. Now that's not too uncommon, people often let you know that they're not too worried about criticism and don't want you to sugarcoat things because they're genuinely looking to improve. But then when I started looking at the gameplay I noticed that even in the description it says please be as harsh as possible, and I realized this dude really knows what he wants. Now, that's not my usual coaching style, I don't try to be unnecessarily harsh to people, however, if that's what he wants, who am I to kink shame the guy? So you guys drop near Bunker and Cascades and we see you loot up and make your way over towards Bunker Village. Now we skipped forward so we don't really know what happened in the meantime, but there's only 7 teams and 20 players left, 2/3 of the lobby is dead and you guys all have common armor and you have 2 not great weapons with no attachments on them. So my question is, what in the hell have you been doing for 10 minutes? You clearly haven't gotten into fights and you've clearly been wasting your time looting. Remember that the most important loot and the most high quality loot you're always going to get from supply drops and enemies. And never from buildings or containers. These 10 minutes that you've spent to find 3 common armors, a scout and a hemlock are wasted. You are so undergeared for the point of the game that you're in, you're already a free kill. At this point in the game I'm expecting you to have weapons that you like, and a hemlock and a scout are not a super sensible combination. Yeah, technically it's an assault rifle and a sniper, but we all know the G7 scout is not very effective at being a sniper, it's more of a mid-range tactical weapon. On top of that you have a 3x on it that doesn't have a rangefinder, which severely limits the sniping capabilities that you have and further solidifies it as a medium range weapon. Combine that with the hemlock, which is also a medium range weapon, which is also not a top tier weapon and which also doesn't have enough attachments on it because you spent your time looting ineffectively, you now have got a pretty shitty loadout for the point in the game that you're in, and so you need to be playing a bit safer. Because of that, you are lucky that when you showed up the enemies didn't see you, and all you had to do is not take a shot at the enemy so that you could choose a good engage for yourself and not be out in the open in a fucking desert when you take a shot at them with terrible loot. Sadly you do end up taking a shot, but luckily for you they're just as potato as you are and they just kind of tend to ignore it and keep running forward, allowing you to re-engage and do it properly this time. Even more lucky for you is that your teammates put up a zipline on your left, which you can get to safely and then get to the highest point in this area, which is perfect for scouting and defending and punishing these people if they take a bad position. So far this is not only a great play from your teammates, but they also made up for your horrible engage and are now giving you a better one for free. Instead of actually following them, what you decide to do is go on a YOLO flank by yourself on your left on the low ground away from where you last saw the enemies, because you saw one of them. You don't even have close range weapons. Like right now everything in my brain is telling me that there's no point in doing what you're doing. But when you show up, this flank still might work out due to sheer luck and no skill involved whatsoever, because as you show up there you hear the enemy Wraith use her Void Walk, so she's probably going in there to heal. Which means you can either decide to wait outside until you hear her start her healing so you can punish her, or you can just pop your Q because you're octane and run in there aggressively to punish her. However, you end up doing neither of those things. You open the door and you stand there with your brain buffering for about 15 minutes until you realize that there's an enemy literally right next to you. If you're going to push into a building where you're expecting enemies, either be fast so that you don't get blindsided or check your damn corners. But the only possible thing that I could imagine being worse than just blindly running into a building where enemies are is standing still in the doorway. Now luckily the person playing Pathfinder was busy getting yelled at by their mom, so they weren't able to respond and you still got the kill. But let's be honest, anybody that was actually awake at their computer while you were standing still in that doorway would have killed you for free. Then after that you have the right instinct leaving the house and closing the door behind you because there should still be a Wraith. This gives your teammates time to come up to you as well, and obviously here you want to take some cover under the bridge or on top of the building so that you can heal safely while your teammates clean up. And oh no, wait, forget what I just said, you ran in with 1 HP suicidally. Okay, well, now that the fight is over, at the very least I want to see you grab an armor and stop looting. No, you're still looting. No, okay, you're 1 HP, you really don't want to be. This is terrible, if a team shows up now you're probably... Okay, you just shot the wall. So at the very least run away to a safe location where you can heal. Oh no, wait, you're camping in a corner. Yep, by now your building has been surrounded, your teammates are fighting this, and you're just kind of... Yep, you're gonna run out in the open, okay. You expect to be chased here, so you look behind you, that is good, but you're not actually ready for them to chase you, you're just kind of standing with no cover there expecting to be killed. You still haven't healed. Right here I want to pause and look at this position, because I've talked quite often about forcing value out of your teammates when they're in a bad position, and this is a perfect example. You climbed up to the fence and you see one of your teammates has luckily not taken any damage and therefore is reviving your teammate out in the open. This is a bad position. You also know that the enemies are on the other side of the building and have already taken damage, but they're probably going to push this when they hear the res, right? You're expecting that, right? So as soon as the enemies show up to try and punish your teammates, I want to see you covering your teammates and punishing the enemies. Sadly, even though this is the most predictable freaking situation I could imagine, you still take about 15 minutes for your brain to buffer while the enemy shows up, so they have time to kill your teammate, who by the way is a wraith with purple armor, the hardest damn thing to kill in this game. They have time for that because somehow you did not expect this. At this point I'm wondering whether you're high while you're playing, but let's move on and see what happens next. Because when your teammates go down, you can still expect both opponents to push, and so I want to see you take a position where you cannot get sandwiched, preferably obviously on top of the house. And in order to do that, I would have definitely used my jump pad because you have it here, or you could have used it to just fully disengage and try to heal, then hope you can get your teammates' banners afterwards. Sadly, we see you doing neither of those, you stay in a terrible position and you get punished for it, because you allow them to sandwich you. Alright, so let's move on to the next game. You let your teammates know that you hear an enemy nearby and your teammates are incredibly far away. Why you keep dropping on your own solo adventure I have no clue, but if you're playing at this skill level you clearly shouldn't because it's not working out for you. After you hear the opponent, the first thing you decide to do is go into an already looted shack to pick up a backpack. Is that really your priority right now? You have 100 health and you're about to get fucking destroyed 1v3 by being right here and not being close to your teammates. So if I were you, I would be getting the fuck out. Instead you decide to just continue looting like life is all dandy and you get killed in less than a second by this enemy. Honestly, at this point there's not much to say about it because I'm pretty sure every single person in the universe other than you saw this coming. Then when you're down, there's generally only two things that you can do if you don't get thirsted. The first is letting your teammates know anything that you see, so that they are aware of the enemy position, and the second thing is getting to a safe spot for you to be rested. So let's see what you decide to do. Nope, you're just perpetually jumping on an open staircase where you were obvious and easily thirsted, and you're not actually actively doing anything to save yourself or help your teammates. That's too bad. Luckily they clean up, but it's definitely not thanks to you because you did not contribute anything yet. Alright, moving on to later in the game. There's 10 squads left and 26 people, so it's a little bit earlier into the game than last time when I harped on your loadout, but it's definitely mid-game right now. If we look at your loadout, you still have a common armor, just like you did last time, but your teammates have blue and purple, and you actually have weapons that work well together, as well as a top tier weapon in the R99, so this is a lot better than before. As you move your way down towards Cascades, you find an enemy with very little health. I believe he only has 14, and you instantly kill them with one shot. I want you to remember how easy it was to kill this opponent with 14 health. It doesn't matter how good they were, because they were out in the open with no health at all, they were a completely free kill. Just remember that for later, it's going to become relevant. Now the person that you just killed with little health got knocked and then was killed by a finisher from your teammate, meaning they did not instantly die. So unless they had a self-res, that means that there are still enemies nearby. Because of that, I want to see you scout from a safe position, stay somewhat close to your teammates, and as you're moving around, be safe using cover around you. You don't do any of that, the one opponent you saw is dead, so clearly everything is safe and dandy and nothing bad is ever going to happen to you because you are the innocent and cute coughless, so you just run out into the open and you get absolutely obliterated. Alright, as you get revived by your teammate, I want to remind you of the opponent that you killed earlier that had 10 health and was out in the open. You'll probably see where I'm going with this. You are that guy right now. You're one shot, you're swapping weapons and looting in a completely horrible position, right after making a lot of noise in a high traffic area, and you don't even pick up the armor first. On top of that, if you'd actually picked up the armor first like a good boy and paid more attention, you would have noticed that the armor is damaged. And even after picking it up, you're a very easy kill. Pick up the armor, heal in cover, and then go loot. If you have no health heals, like here, pick up the armor and the first medkit or syringe stack you see, ignore the other loot, go into cover, and then heal. It's not rocket science. After miraculously not being killed by any 12-year-old while you were looting, you and your mates decide to make your way through a bunker, for reasons. They're not good reasons. You had a great defendable position inside the circle from which you had access to a redeploy balloon, so you can either hold that position until the ring closes or make a rotation farther into the circle, hunting down more teams. Instead, you lead your team away from this good position to go loot the buildings downstairs. Now, there's 6 teams left, 10 enemies, you all have purple or gold armor, and every decent player is already geared up at this point, and you're running into low ground buildings to loot some common items. Let that sink in for a second. You have 280 heavy ammo, a Spitfire and a purple armor. Let it sink in. Now, because you guys end up looting in a bad spot, you hear a fight on the other side of bunker, and it's far outside of zone, so you guys could have easily held your good position and farmed these teams as they go into the zone. But since you're already committed to whatever shiny or loud thing is closest to you at any given time, you're just gonna push this anyway. Except on your way towards and through bunker, you guys spend so much time exchanging heals and checking the rooms and the containers for completely irrelevant loot that by the time you show up on the other side of bunker, you've lost any significant third-party advantage. With your guys' clueless approach, you're really just hoping on the fact that whatever players are still alive there are potato players with no teammates. If there's 2 decent experienced players that cleaned up over there, looted up and are alive, then your sluggishness means that you're just more cannon fodder for a good player's high kill game. If you're going to third party, timing is everything, you can't be slow like this. After your teammate knocks down an opponent, he says he's going to use a finisher, and you know that there's still an enemy around because this opponent didn't have a gold revive shield. Because of that, the other enemies are likely to be in front of you, not at bunker where you came from, because you didn't see or hear anybody. So you have the right idea of taking high ground to cover your teammate from that side, but once again, halfway through committing to a plan, you brain freeze and you just kind of hang there. You only needed to go one more rock forward and you would literally have the best sightlines and position in this area. Instead, you half commit, and because of that you're too late to help out your teammate up front, who solos another enemy, and then you're also too late to help your teammate in the back, who solos an opponent once again. Literally, your teammates just won 3 fights by themselves whilst you were contemplating the meaning of life because you didn't commit to either side and didn't take a good sideline whatsoever. But here comes the real kicker. I can see why you're struggling for loot, because this entire game you've been looting too much. But now that your teammates have cleared the area and secured good, high quality loot, you skip it. Look at your attachments, you don't even have a sight on your Spitfire. Now is when you skip looting? For real, bro? Alright, so with your Spitfire without good attachments and without a sight, because you skipped all the good loot for all the bad loot, you have 1 kill on the board from an enemy that was defenseless. He was out in the open with 10 health, so basically you killed the player like yourself, and that's about it. Other than that, you managed to get knocked down in a 3v1 in your team's favor, right after you dealt that magnificent 10 damage, so overall I would say that your impact on this team has been, well, let's go with the 3 out of 10. You didn't instantly leave the game, and you didn't steal your teammates' loot, so there's definitely worse teammates out there than you, but not that many. We'll have a look at the last fight, and then we'll have a chat about what you could do to actually have a noticeable impact on your team's performance, but so far you haven't actually contributed that much. The final fight starts with you being shot at, as you're running up far ahead of your team in glorious fashion once again. You instantly turn around and run back towards your teammates, that's great. Oh no wait, you changed your mind, you U-turn out in the middle of the open and put yourself even closer to the entire enemy team with 3/4 of your armor broken. And then your brain is just buffering again. If you're going to heal, do it instantly, otherwise don't bother and just disengage, because all you've done now is take damage for no good reason. Now I'm going to let you listen to the comms for a second here.
They're flanking you, Focus, watch out. Jump in and get out of there. Just keep it to your right, they're trying to pinch you.
Now I'm not sure if illest baby girl X is actually a child or a person with an unfortunately childlike voice, but for the sake of argument we're going with them being underaged here, and let it sink in for a second that quite literally a child could tell you how bad of a play you're pulling. Now, instead of jumping towards your team or to a defendable, strong position, you jump pad blindly into where the enemy team is. It must have felt great dropping this caustic like a sack of potatoes, but once again this is primarily due to the fact that he was playing on a Samsung Smart Toaster on McDonald's Wi-Fi and his teammates have the object permanence of a 2-year-old baby. You killed this opponent because his entire team managed to outstupid you, not because you outsmarted them. And after downing the caustic, you didn't even look at the opponents or take cover. The adrenaline of finding an opponent you can actually defeat must have been too much because you straight beeline off the cliff, taking a bunch of unnecessary damage on the way, ignoring the jump pad you dropped earlier that you could have used to re-engage, and you gave all of that up just to heal in a terrible spot once again. Now pushing back up, you clearly have never even heard of the word cover, that's just a foreign food to you and you stand out in the open like the world's shittiest scarecrow. The Pathfinder isn't scared by your bush warfare tactics and just ziplines away. Now this would have been a free kill if your controller wasn't running low on battery here, or at least that's what I'm going to assume given the speed and accuracy of the tracking. Then you finally have a solid position and get there via cover. A possibly accidental great play, but a great play nonetheless. On the peak, however, you get face slapped for overexposing yourself and having the accuracy of a drunk trucker in a public urinal. Now you take a lot of damage and are also getting shot from behind, so clearly this is where you'll use your high ground and the cover around you to get a quick heal off from the difficult to push position that you're in. No wait, just kidding, you jump off and crouch behind the shed on low ground between two enemies. Now one teammate gets knocked and there's an enemy near him that's about to have sidelines on you, and your other teammate took a ton of damage and has to heal. Are you really going to just sit here and use that last syringe for 12 health that you haven't passively healed yet? Trust me, taking a better position with this time is going to save you a lot more than 12 health when this enemy on the left side pushes you. You clearly know he's there, but you're doing nothing to actually be ready for it. Now we actually see you take high ground and using a crouch against the Peacekeeper shot and sliding backwards here, so that's all very good. But then you realize you're 1 HP and you have to run. Look at this. You just stand there and stare at where the enemy is going to kill you again. Stop waiting for a formal invitation to your own murder and get moving. Now your teammate cleans up your mess for the 17th time this game as you finish with a kill down ratio of 1.0. You got 2 kills, 2 of which were basically AFK opponents, and you went down twice. But this wouldn't be a coaching video if we didn't work on fixing those problems. First of all, engage with your teammates. Stick close enough to them that you can get revived if you get knocked. Flanking is great, but if you're having this much trouble engaging cleanly, start with more basic strategies like sticking together and using defendable positions. And realize the limitations of your loadout. You're not going to get geared up by avoiding fighting. It's better to die to an early fight in an attempt to improve and take their gear than what you did in your first game. Because if you spent 14 minutes looting and then die with common armor in the late game, you haven't really gotten any valuable practice time in. So grab essential gear and then try to kill other players for their gear. You'll die quicker, but you'll get into way more fights and improve a lot faster. Your reaction times should also improve as you gain experience this way. Similarly, if you have bad armor, very few attachments and a scout and a hemlock, you don't want to flank and rush enemies alone. That's really not in your favor. At the same time, if your teammates are holding a high ground far away from your flank, you really need to be ready to disengage. Know your exit strategy. You can't just freeze halfway through and expect to not get killed. If you go in, you need to have a plan to get out. Next is fairly obvious, but stop looting when you're on 1 HP. Heal first, this needs no further explanation. And if you see enemies and they don't see you, don't just blindly shoot at them from wherever you are. Follow or lead your teammates to a strong position first and then take the fight. When you do have a decent position, like when you're fighting the Pathfinder, learn how to use high ground and cover to heal quickly in battle. You should learn to instantly, when you take enough damage, duck behind cover and heal. That's why you usually have a shield battery pre-equipped, so it's only one button to instantly start healing. It's really fast in this game, so use it well. Lastly, don't be afraid to just run away to your team. If you're caught alone or otherwise vulnerable because you didn't find an armor, your weapons are bad, you didn't know there was enemies there, or whatever is happening, maybe you just dropped far away and you're about to get into a fight and you don't think you're going to win a 1v3 there, then just leave certain death behind and reset to the safety of your teammates. Just run, and then you'll figure out how you want to push that team together. I really hope that was helpful. Peace.